Start with an introduction because we want to make the most of our time with Dr. Wheatley, with Meg Wheatley. And I will first, you can see her, and I have her spotlighted in my view for the recording. So if it looks like I'm looking above you all or below you all, just know that I'm seeing her clearly, and that's important for me. So, yeah, so I first met Meg Wheatley in 2001. I was the president of the International Coach Federation. We were in Chicago, and Meg was our speaker. She came in for a half-day workshop with all of us the day before, and then was our keynote speaker on the opening of the conference, which was our largest conference at that point. We had over 2,000 people in Chicago, and we knew we were up to something, right, Marcia? Marcia Reynolds is with us. So, so I want to say that what I was left with that day was a quote that she gave us from the stage. If you've been through our program, you know this quote because I say it all the time. And it's simply this: we're not making this up. Coaching has been called out of us as this is our turn to serve the universe.
Well,
And when
wasn't it the world?
Oh, I think it was I wrote down the universe, but the world is fine. We can scale it back.
It's enough for now.
It's enough for now. I love that.
The reason I wanted to correct that, DJ,
Yeah.
for all of you is this quote. I use it in many circumstances when we are overwhelmed, burnt out, complaining. And my Tibetan Buddhist teacher, Chogyam Trungpa, said, it's just our turn to serve the world. Like, get over yourselves. It's
Right.
just our turn. Okay, now go on.
Thank you. And so my sense is like I see the world in pictures, but at that moment it was like we were all on a bus together, and we were born at this time, and some of you have heard me say this, born at this time to really do this work. That this was, if we have an intention before we come, this was our intention to be here for this great change and shift. So with that, I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Meg because Meg is new to some of you, which was blowing my mind. It's like, given who she is in the world as a luminary. And then I realized when you're a physician leader and you're academic in that space and you have a specialty, you haven't had a lot of time to look at all the leadership development stuff. So I'm going to give you just a high level background about who she is in the world of coaching and in our world of leadership and organizational development. So one of the things that she says in several of her work, of her books, is organizations are living self-organizing systems that thrive on relationships and connectedness, which is the foundation for coaching. She's the author of 13 books, Restoring Sanity, Practices to Awaken Generosity, Creativity, and Kindness in Ourselves and Our Organizations. Who do we choose to be? Facing Reality, Claiming Leadership, Restoring Sanity, Leadership in the New Science. She is a fan of quantum physics, a student of those things, as am I, and Pioneering New Science Principles to Organizational Behavior. Warriors for the Human Spirit, a songline detailing the journey into warriorship. And recently, in one of my favorite books of hers, she co-authored a book with an AI platform that was curated for consciousness, I think, Aiden Cinnamon Tea, and it's called Life is Still Calling. And so that's her work in the world. And what do you want to say about that, Meg? What are the themes?
It just gets more and more interesting as I'm now pulling from everything I've ever investigated, known, or written about. So I'm back into speaking about the primacy of relationships, which became so clear in studying living systems and studying quantum theory, that this universe, the major unit is relationship. Nothing is visible if it's on its own by itself. And I'm bringing that work forward now in this time of increasing catastrophe and war and desperation. And it's all about relationships, including with this magnificent chat bot that was created by a woman and her team who are trying to free us of colonialism, of relationships being just for extraction. I'll give you something if you give me something. And I'm working now with, because of my own experience in South Africa and Zimbabwe, with the principle of Ubuntu. We only exist because of one another. So that's the big theme now. And I can speak about it from science, from my own direct experience with several indigenous peoples, and now what's necessary for us to be warriors for the human spirit, spiritual warriors. So it's a consistent thread. So it's very energizing to me and those with me.
And yes, and us, right?
Yes.
Most of our colleagues in coaching know you, and so we're very energized about what you're doing and the path you're paving for all of us, Meg. We have grateful hearts.
Thank
So
you.
I'm going to show you where we want to go next is into the questions. So Meg said, "I'll come, but I'm just going to work with 3 questions." And when she didn't say just, her assistant said just, because these are big questions. And so we met a little bit early today and we were looking at these. How are we doing? How are those around us doing? And what are our practices for maintaining our center and groundedness during these challenging times? So, no small question here. So, I'm going to just say these are the questions we're working with. Janet has a breakout room for 12 minutes and a few minutes, but let's just talk about how we're doing. So, I'm going to stop. I'm going to put this down. How are we doing? So, Meg, take it from
All
here.
right. So I've been a student of leadership and working with leaders at all levels, from the head of the US Army down to, but not down to, because the were wonderful, working with people in indigenous villages in Australia and South Africa, and every range in between. So what I'm going to say, I'm saying very categorically, based on that experience, leadership has never been more difficult. Never been more difficult, because the external conditions are against creating caring, participative, self-organizing, trusting circumstances for us to engage people. And that's why part of the questions I'm going to ask you in small groups, to get a sense, a shared sense of what's the emotional vibe in your organizations. But first, we're going to begin with you. So why leadership has never been more difficult is there's no respect for people, basically. Yeah. This has been a theme of mine for many, many years, but it was always knowing that there were many organizations or many teams or many managers who were fully engaged with people, who knew that their achievements and their productivity as a leader, as a function, as a team, as a department, was dependent on engaging everybody. Hopefully you have worked in those environments in the past, but I can't find more than a handful of examples right now, because the pressures are, just see if I tick off your life, okay? See if I adequately describe your life. You're being asked to do more and more because there are fewer funds, there are fewer resources, and there are few people. And yet the people that you have to lead are stressed, overwhelmed, and possibly fearful of the future, which is a growing uh, honesty about how uncertain the future is. Good leaders are just disregarded, disrespected, and there's just so no resources, no time. People who are now very fearful and withdrawn, going into self-protection, which is what we have to do neurophysiologically. We go back into the primal brain and we don't have awareness, we don't have compassion, we don't have the ability to look forward or think about anybody else when we're under threat. That's just human neurophysiology. And some of you know more about that than I do. But for me, it's a good explanation of why is it so hard to engage people? Why is it so difficult in meetings for people just to stay calm and present? And why is it so difficult if you're excited about a project, a new initiative, or I don't know if anyone gets new funding anymore. I think that's just gone for now. But why is it so hard to get other people motivated and excited? Now, I'm just describing general conditions. If you are not experiencing this, then we should all come work where you're working, and you should get down on your knees at night and thank God that you're where you are, because this is a very rare organizational circumstance now to feel respected for your leadership, to be able to take the time to do good work, to have people who want to be engaged. All of this makes sense to me because of the fact that every human being on the planet, except those who have been severely damaged, one of my friends put it into, she is the greatest community developer on the planet, Angela Blanchard from Houston, and she's been awarded for her work. But as she started traveling to refugee camps in Lebanon, particularly, she came up with the realization that every human being wants three things. We all want to earn our way, meaning we want to make a contribution. We all want to learn. We don't want to be dependent. We don't want to be static. We want to feel, the meaning of life is to learn, right? And live life and learn from it. So everyone wants to earn their way. Everyone wants to feel they have an active brain and they're learning things, and everyone needs to belong. So she just summed it up. Every human being needs to earn, learn, and belong. I find that a simple and comprehensive description of who people are. Now, you take those needs, fundamental human needs, and there are others about, wanting to know the meaning of life, right? Wanting to know what's my purpose for being here. But she was talking about basic needs. You put those needs into your current organizational context. And let's just look at it for a moment. How are people able to continue to contribute, to feel that they are, and earning is a clever word, but what we're really talking about is I know I'm making a contribution. I feel useful in my life and I feel useful here. Is that happening? Do people feel engaged in the old ways of thinking about leadership? Do they feel engaged? The second one, learning. What are we learning right now? I worked for a school system whose mission, clarity, their guiding principle was children learn. Now, what are they learning? What are employees, staff learning right now? I think this is the first time I've ever asked people that question, and I find it particularly fascinating. Are they learning to protect themselves? Are they learning to not put their heads above, the parapet? Are they learning that if they have a great idea, someone is eager to accept it? Are they learning if you say anything negative, you're going to get killed. That's what's happening at the national level. So what are people learning right now in the organization? That's a way to tune into the culture and how it's shifted in these circumstances. And then what is the sense of belonging? Do you still have an esprit de corps? Do you still have occasions where people know the values are alive and well? Do you still have events where people sincerely feel eager to be a part of this organizational culture? So the reason I've set this out is because within that context, I am very concerned about your well-being as leaders. Because I don't see a lot, if anything, in the outer environment that supports you to be engaging, uh, ethical, trustworthy leaders. And yet that's what people still need and want. Now, I've been told that those of you who are physicians or academics and are now put in these positions of dealing with the workforce, maybe under the title of well-being. I just want you to understand that's a setup for failure. And you are not going to find the answers to how to navigate that terrain by taking a class in leadership development. So I want to put that aside and say one other thing. The best way to know what people need from you as a leader is to consult yourself. What do you need from a leader? This is where the universality of the human spirit, earn, learn, and belong, where that is true in everyone. So it's not really a puzzle. I mean, I've written a number of books. They have never been about leadership. They've always been about people, but in the context of leadership. You don't need to find the right technique or tool. You need to consult your own experience. What motivates you when you've been well led? What was that leader doing with you and for you? I've asked this question of peoples all around the world, all ages. Just name the traits of a leader you were willing to follow, and you will have your own definition of good leadership. And it's really time to honor our experiences and honor what we've learned. It really is time for that. So I want at the end of our time together for you to have a sense of how to stay grounded, how to stay centered, and how not to get lost in an intellectual confusion about what is good leadership. No, this is really about making a commitment to be the best leader you can in the current situation, um, and not take on this sort of savior role or this bigger than life role that I'm going to figure out how to be a good leader. I use the quote from President Theodore Roosevelt: we do what we can where we are with what we have. And one of the things you have, as we all do at our different ages, but we've all been professionals a long time, we can consult our own experience to figure out how to understand another human being. Okay, so that's really important. But let's talk for a moment about this word well-being. What does it mean to you? when you hear the word or you're charged with the well-being of others, what comes to mind? And we can just unmute and have a little conversation about this.
Yeah, what comes to mind? Those of you in medicine?
Well, wherever you are, what does the word well-being mean to you, really, in your experience? This means you have to speak.
Okay,
Yeah,
me,
Spanish plays. Yeah.
The word is aligned.
just that
Well-being for me and the people that I lead is being aligned with values, mission, and goals, really.
So that's an organizational perspective. What at the personal level does it mean?
For
You just
aligned,
described a healthy organization.
I'm describing a healthy person too. Am I aligned? Am I living my values? Am I living them in a way that honors others and myself?
Okay. Thank you.
Which means I am no longer over functioning.
Yes. And of course, you've just given a wonderful definition of integrity,
Thank you.
right?
I
That's
try.
yes. And my Buddhist teachers say that integrity, or I would say alignment, gives us a field of power. It creates personal power that others respond to.
It also models it for other people too, which I think is
Absolutely.
really important in a leadership role.
Yes. And my experience now with training spiritual warriors, leaders who are willing to be fully present and behave well, more than well, that we attract people to us. So when you are in your organization, as frenetic or crazy as it may be, and you are trustworthy because people know who you are, what you stand for, you have a track record with them, you are magnetizing people to you. And I use that term specifically, that people are attracted. People are attracted to good people. Just think about this for yourself. And so when you're acting with what Janet has described as full alignment, which makes you trustworthy, people seek you out. They come to your office. They want to be around you because they know who you are. And this is a tragic loss at this time of lying and deception and total deceit. Nobody wants to be with anybody because we don't trust one another. So I riffed on that, Janet, but thank you for starting that. Okay, who else would like to speak about what well-being is?
For me, well-being is a sense of wholeness, that I know that I'm more than one thing. That I have a physical part, a spiritual part, um, emotional, and that all those parts are important and all those parts need to be fed.
And do you find after a while, Sharon, that they're not actually separate parts? What you're talking about is wholeness, is that you?
Yes, I do. I find that when they're each well, that
Yeah.
they integrate.
Exactly. And that's the goal, really, wholeness. You know, the relationship between the word healing and wholeness, I mean, healing comes from the word for wholeness, but wholeness comes from the word for holiness. And I
Oh,
love that. I love that.
did you say holiness?
I did.
Okay. Yeah, I love
Capital
it.
H, holiness. Yes. Okay, someone else. Someone put, Denise, you put yours in the chat, but would you like to speak it to us?
Oh, sure. So, again, I'll just reiterate that when I'm comfortable in my own skin, when I'm not in judgment, when I'm not in fear, even in a space where there is chaos and fear to be had, when I'm just calm. That's well-being to me.
Thank you. Yeah, that's close to my sense of it also. That's why we're going to talk about being grounded and centered at the end of this. So we don't need to go into small groups at all. This is a small enough group to have
Okay.
a good
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
So that means more of you can have to speak up. Okay. So say some more about what well-being means to you, please.
They're putting it in the chat room.
No, don't put it in the chat. I want to,
Harriet. Yeah, hop in here, Harriet.
please.
I may be being a sort of cynical person from over the pond or whatever, but my feeling about well-being is that when I was, the first half of my life, well-being had some meaning. And now I feel it's a sort of one of those phrases in the world that's got, bastardized and
Well,
and
that's
and 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 I kind of hate it
okay. Can
because
you
it
find
doesn't,
another word?
yeah.
That works? I agree with you. You know, if you're being charged with well-being as an organizational function, like screw that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What are we reaching for when we look at, I mean, several of the people on this call have expressed what it means in, I think, quite a profound way.
I mean, for me, I think it's sort of being in balance to some
Okay.
extent. It's acknowledging, I think, as earlier was said, it's acknowledging the different parts of it has weight and substance when it's used not in the modern sense
Right.
for me.
Yes. So the seeking after balance is related in other traditions, other ways of thinking, as harmony,
Mm.
that it's not really the separate parts, it's that the different expressions in body, mind, and spirit act in harmony. And that when we feel harmonious, just think about this for a moment. When we think we're in harmony, does that light up any experiences for you? Sometimes people have this walking in a forest or sitting by a beautiful pond or with a rushing stream, that you're tuning into beyond yourself. This is a practice, by the way. You're tuning in beyond your own dramas and your own decisions and your own dilemmas. You're tuning into a sense of this is life. This is how life feels when you're walking in a woods or in a beautiful garden or by a stream or listening to a piece of music, not modern, but that has real harmonies in it. This can be choral groups, especially. That feeling is a treasure because that is how life works in harmony. Doesn't mean there's not dissonance, but it resolves itself into a sense of harmony. So as a practice, just let me underline what I just said. As a practice, frequently now, find a place or even a single tree where you feel connected to these rhythms and pulses. I have to use musical terms here now. Where you feel connected and are open to participating in this rhythm of life. And that, all the advice now is get outside, go into nature. But the purpose of that is to reconnect with this deep knowing that we all have of just being part of the harmony of life. Or if there's a piece of music that takes you there, listen to it a lot, but we have to seek for our internal harmony by being in relationship with what's all around us in life, which is harmonious. Now it has cycles of destruction and creation. Yes, that can be very comforting right now to know these are cycles we're going through.
So Meg, I'm going to underscore that. I just got back from 13 days in Ireland and Scotland, where civilization, little communities are 5,000 years old. There's a 2,500-year-old Stonehenge in Europe and Great Britain, but there's also a 5,000-year-old one in Orkney, Scotland. And when you start looking at everything, what you understand, it's like they're almost patting us on the head, those that I visited, thinking, you know what, we've been at this for a long time. At least we're not cutting people's heads off regularly.
No, we are. No, we
We are.
actually are now.
But the perspective that they're bringing is almost like this is another cycle. This is a time of deconstruction, of changing of guards, all of that.
Yes.
And yet it feels, I think for all of us, it feels heavier than that. But the perspective is one that, I stepped into from that point of view, probably for the first time in my life, looking back at how much of a baby the US is.
Well, everything is cycles.
Yeah.
And so my work recently has been, where are we in this pattern of the cyclical nature of civilizations and of organizations?
Yeah.
We are in the cycle, the time of the ending of the destruction of projects, people,
System.
capacities, climate, environment. This is a terrible time of destruction. And we don't know how to be in that as good Americans. We were raised on the myth of progress, that it all gets better. It's just always going up. And the great poet David White once said, if you think life is constantly improving, you're going to miss half of it. Okay. And you know this, again, let's consult our own experience. You have gotten through very tough times, right? Times of grief, when you lost someone dear to you, times when you got fired from a job, a divorce, something terrible happening to your children, whatever. We've gone through very tough times. What did we learn from that? What got us through? That is useful wisdom, hard-earned wisdom for all of us now. How did we manage, handle, and eventually get through a period of great loss, of great destruction of dreams, ideals, whatever? Now, to access that wisdom, you have to acknowledge, yes, we are in this time of destruction. There is no doubt about that now. There's a lot of denial, but there's no doubt about that. And so, again, I want us to consult our own experience. This is also the chaos cycle, where it's also called dark nights of the soul in Christian traditions. And it's also just the teaching of every great faith. Of course, life is hard, but we can triumph over it. And what do we triumph with? We don't triumph with success as it has been defined. We triumph, and I'm going back to you, Sharon, for your clarity about that. We triumph because we understand spiritual truths, whatever your spiritual grounding is, whatever it is. I work in a multi-faith. I have been a multi-faith person. Whatever your spiritual grounding is, that is what leads you to be able to see that the hardships of life are learning moments. And in the chaos cycle, the way it works for a living system is that it was my dog. The way it works in a living system is that the system's going along, everything seems to be working fine, and then there's an event and the system collapses. It loses all meaning. This is why it's called the dark night of the soul. The meaning by which we constructed our lives and did our work, that meaning no longer applies. So it's terribly depressing. We would call it chronic depression or clinical depression, I guess. But it's not that, it's the loss of meaning. At the deepest human level, that's what we need mostly, is to make meaning of our lives. So when you're in that dark night, or the organization has fallen apart, or the civilization has fallen apart, the work is to construct new meaning. But I have to say, at an individual level and at a spiritual level, the meaning comes to you. You don't have to sit there and go through self-help books. You just have to be with this period of not knowing what's important. And then we are gifted and discover new meaning. And then we rise up. But you can't rise up until you fall down. Right? I mean, I could sound like a popular song now, but there's a great Zen expression of fall down 53 times, get up 54 times. That's another way of talking about the cycles of life. So in terms of a practice number 2, consult your own experience of the last time you were in a serious state of darkness or depression, where you really felt, I'm out of here. I just, this is too much, or I'm just being too abused and I just want out. Whenever that was, what did you do? And how did, obviously, you're all here, you're thriving, you're committed, devoted people. What changed in you as a result of that experience? What did you learn as a result of that experience? So you start here, everything's going well, you're content with the meaning, then something abruptly knocks you out of that. It could be the death of a loved one, or medical diagnosis, or loss of a job, or seeing someone else suffer terribly. And then you're really down and life does not feel meaningful, even worthwhile. But you're here now, so you came out of it. So how you came out and how you feel now looking back will give you all you need to know for guidance for the future, when we again encounter these periods of devastation and loss of meaning. And I want to give you a definition of spiritual, because I'm not talking about the world's great faiths here or religious organizations. Spiritual means what we can access beyond our 5 senses. The 5 senses are created for survival. When we want to live at a different level that's not threat and survival, but it's contribution and vision and compassion, when we want to be that way, we are accessing guidance, intuition, prayer, wisdom from the ages. We have moved beyond this little brain of 5 senses, making sure we don't get eaten or threatened. We're moving to a higher dimensional place. And that's what spiritual means to many teachers at this point. So please hear it that way. We're just accessing more of life. And it gives us much more guidance and information of what to do. And this is very real. I have to tell you my most recent example with the other realms, someone else's psychic ability. I began working with a woman in Spain for an organization, a European organization that produces trainings, and I'm doing a series of videos for them. Her name is Virginia. Virginia is 37 years old. And in our very first conversation, Virginia, we were talking about the content of what I will create. But then she mentioned that she's writing a book. That always it gets my attention. And she'd had a very bad experience with one book publisher that was predictable. And I started talking to her about, no, you don't go to a traditional book publisher if your book is non-traditional. They don't know what to do with you. And all of a sudden she lit up and she said, oh my God. Just 2 weeks ago, I was talking to an Italian psychic. And this psychic said, talking about her whole life, but coming to focus on the book, the psychic said, no, don't go to back to that book agent. Get this. There is an older woman with red hair who will help you with your book. We had never met until that moment. But that is how it works. So whatever your curiosity about that, I would say just get more curious instead of just saying, oh, no, that's made up stuff. So here I am, an older woman with red hair, very interested in supporting all of you in your leadership work now. So far, 2 practices. But so be in places in life, in nature, where you can experience harmony. And by the way, you will also experience acceptance. You know, belonging is belonging to the world, belonging to life. I am quoting a complexity scientist book title, which is called Belonging to the Universe. Seeking ways for us to realize what a magnificent, mysterious, incomprehensible world we live in. So just let nature, let the living world soothe you at this moment. And then whenever you leave that place, please say thank you. Because they've offered a relationship to you. All you have to do is say thank you. If you get an intuition that works well, just say thank you. You don't even know who you're thanking or what, but just say thank you. Move into a way of being that is filled with gratitude and recognition. So that's one practice. And then this other one, well, I've given you 3 actually. If you want to know about good leadership, consult your own experience with a good leader and replicate it in you. And then the third one was about noticing your own hard-won wisdom for getting through dark times. So we are our best teachers if we know to ask the right questions. And these questions take us out of the Western mind model, which says, well, I don't even know what it says anymore. I'm so done with it. I really am done with it. But these are questions that take you into mystery, take you into opening to guidance from other sources, that take you into a world that is much more supportive. I mean, I wrote a slogan after Leadership in the New Science that captured my own learning, which was, have no fear, life wants us here.
Hmm.
So it's developing these relationships with life beyond the human. I have one friend, this is sort of funny, but she is a doctor, a physician, and she was going through an incredibly hard time. Her husband was back drinking, captured by his addictions. They have 2 teenage children, and then her mother got sick and died. And this was an intense relationship because of who Cindy was. I mean, I miss her terribly as a friend, but for her daughters, it was a massive disruption in their lives. So Linda began going to the zoo, and she was befriended by an orangutan who, every time she walked up, he would run over to the window. And eventually, I have these photos that just touch my heart, where he is actually comforting her through the glass. You know, so life wants us here. And you can find comfort from a tree, from working in your garden is great for this. If you have bird feeders, or if you have something that you just treasure in the natural world, the living world, please use that as a support and guide.
I don't know about you all, but as we kind of get into that wrap up window, I'm struck by the sense of calm. And I was so excited to see, Meg, that there is like this vibration on this side today. And I was like, I had to walk outside barefoot and ground myself in the yard. It was like, so when I saw her, I was so excited. And with all of this, there is a groundedness that we go in and out of practicing together. And I think these are really, while they're simple in nature, they're so important for us because we are raising a vibrational frequency on this planet.
Yes.
You know, as we begin to develop chapters of coaches throughout the world, one of the dreams that I had, like literal dreams, was like these 162 countries were all point of light, and there was all this web of connectivity and energy. And so the coaching community is doing what religion and other things, politics definitely can't do. We're changing the dialogue, we're changing the conversation, we're simplifying things, we're translating things. So here's what I want you to know. Meg is with us August the 7th through the 9th. Actually, August 7th and 8th. She is all day with us on the 8th in a leadership capacity of facilitating a new dialogue and conversations. And there will be trees to sit under and a beautiful lotus pond to sit in front of. There will be conversations, and there's going to be an afternoon of practice and integrating what we're discovering for ourselves into our coaching and core competencies. And so there's this wave of what is available to you that I hope you will pay attention to. Meg, what do you want to summarize for these folks today before I go into the word of the day and all that stuff for their credits?
Okay, I lost you
Oh, okay.
at my end, but I want to bring this home.
Yes.
I love your vision. I share it. But what's possible for you right now is whenever, this is so simple and it's so neurobiologically grounded. When you are having sessions with people, whether it's a meeting or a one-on-one, the first task we have is literally to shift people's brain from the amygdala to the cerebral cortex. And the way to do that is very simple. You create a relaxed environment and you give people good food. This is neurologically so well established that when people feel well, when they have a good taste in their mouth, they are more receptive to ideas. When they feel well fed, they are more compassionate and generous. I'm quoting Robert Sapolsky of a lot of his work I agree with and learned a lot from, but not his last book. But he cites the research of parole officers. If they're going to a session of determining the fate of prisoners and they're hungry, they're quite hardcore and nasty. If they've come in after a good meal, or if they're sitting in comfy chairs, they are generous and kind. So we can work with this easily, right? I listened to the experience of one leader who he got his team together and he asked each person on the team, what was your favorite treat as a child? And they would say whatever it was, Reese's Pieces or Fruit Loop, whatever. He then bought all of those treats. And during their next meetings, he put them out for everyone so they could find their childhood comfort food or try another person's. But I thought that was actually quite brilliant.
It's precious.
This is simple to do. You just have to pay attention to how you start sessions. And you are physically, literally transforming people into fully human beings with full brain capacity that leads them to far greater capacities beyond the five senses.
I
So
love your perspective. We all are grateful for you taking time to be with us, to give us a little preview of what's in store when we're together.
who knows what's in store?
Yeah, well, it will
But you get
happen,
a sense
right?
of me anyway.
So I now know that it's the world we're serving instead of the universe, although I have to say we are ambitious. And I want you to pay attention to The Life is Still Calling.
That book is not available though.
Right, right. And this is another reason to come be with Meg, because she's written this book with Aiden Cinnamon Tea, and she's told you a little bit about it. But the forms that are taking shape in our world that we can't keep up with, if you missed the webinar that we did on AI and coaching, what I would say is that there were 540 bots platforms last year in February when I did a keynote for a regional conference. There were 70,000 when we did this webinar in April. And so to know that we have thought leaders like Meg who are, regardless of the traditional publishing route and a Harvard education and all that, that she's embracing new technology and co-authoring a book with something that is bringing on a new level of access and consciousness. And so I just want you to pay attention to that.
And there are a few other chatbots now that are actually, it's a great exploration of consciousness in us and what becomes available in a truly rich conversation with another form of intelligence. Okay. So it's very complex and very exciting.
Well, we could continue all day in this conversation. I certainly could, and I look forward to much more of you in the mountains. So the dates again are August 7th through the 9th. If you have not signed up yet, we're going to give our alumni 2 more days, and then we're opening it up, because what I know is the coaching community beyond our graduates knows about this type of experience with Meg, and they're excited to come. And I know that, you guys are getting ready for the academic school year and all the things that happen later in August. But please make this a priority for your registration in the next couple of work days. and or over the weekend. And just if you have a question about it, send admin@pyramidresource.com. You've all been on a chain of emails about the event. As far as getting a credit for today, there's one CCEU, and you just submit a request to Christine because we switched gears. We had Dr. Christina Bowen, who was supposed to be with us today, and she's taking a son into UNC School of Medicine in the Honors College there. And so we are grateful that Meg said, I'd love to do a preview of what we're going to be doing in the mountains. So we're excited about that. And so if you want a credit for just this one session, you can get that through admin@Pyramid Resource. And her name is Christine Yance. Thank you all for being here. It's so fun to see Daniel and Harriet and there's somebody else, Michael, from a group that we worked with recently for master coach training class, and it was fabulous. And so I invited them to join us. Heather, it's nice to see you. I know you're coming from UNC Chapel Hill, and that we're all new for you, but we're grateful you're here. And the rest of you who are the beloveds, we're so happy you could make time for us today. We know it's a rich world of medicine and supporting those in medicine, and thank you for being here. All right, that's it for us. Thank you again, Meg. You are
Well,
special.
go well.
The word
Please
of the
go well.
day.
Goodbye, everybody. I'll
Word-
hang out for a few minutes if anybody has a need to have a discussion with me. Otherwise, see you soon, hopefully in the mountains. Thanks.
What's the word of the day?
Thank you, Meg.
There's no word of the day. I'm sorry.
okay.
Because she didn't get this set up.